Hey guys, Kyle here. So, just before the show starts, I wanted to mention our Patreon. You can pay us $1 a month as a thank you, as a tip. You can pay $2 a month to get access to one of our bonus content shows, episodes 2 days early, and a secret Discord chat where all of our Patreon donors get to go and hang out and talk with us directly. Then there's a $5 tier that you can donate to get access to a whole bunch more content. We have multiple bonus episodes on there. So please check it out. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We don't advertise, we don't make money. So check it out and throw us some money if you think that would be cool. Thanks.
Hello there, and welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try to make your world a little weirder. I'm Nile.
And I'm Kyle. And this week I want to give a couple shouts out, if I can.
Okay.
I want to give a shout out to the cat, my little homie, who I live with, Parky, aka Parker, aka Pork Chop, aka Punky Brewster, aka Pepper Jonathan. We've called him all these names, by the way.
I've been witness to multiple of them, and I've only spent one night in your actual house.
So
I can see that.
Here's a fun little story to kick things off, Nile. Last week on Friday, me and my girlfriend Olivia were hanging out, and I go to pet Parky. And Parky's been kind of mopey recently. You know, he lost a fight with a cat, we think, outdoors, because he's a half outdoors cat. He spends some time out there. Another neighbor cat roughed him up a little bit. He was mopey for like a week and a half. Okay. It sucks. But so I'm like, I'm keeping my eye on him. I feel a little bump on his little kitty rump. And Olivia comes over. I'm like, Olivia, you work with pets. What do you think of this? And she kind of gives him a little pat on the butt. She goes, "That's an abscess. Take him to the vet." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Now, Parky is an older cat, and he's had a bump on his butt that was sort of previously established, right? This is a new bump for me. I thought it was, at least.
Okay, so this is a secondary bump that is different than the original bump.
Yeah, this was another bump, or at least I thought it was. I reported it. I filed the papers with the actual owners of the cat, because he's not my cat. He's just a cat I happen to live with. And they're like, "Oh no, he has a butt bump." And I'm like, "Okay, then he's probably fine." Hey, check it out. Sunday, that thing fucking burst. That abscess was oozing on our shit.
Oh God.
And the poor guy, he had to go into the vet. He got like a shot. We had to. I'll be honest with you, we did have to. I say we. I held him down. My roommate had to administer a thermometer up his butt, because that's how you take a cat's temperature, I guess. And the poor guy has just been like, he can't go outside for 2 weeks, and outside is like his favorite thing, by the way. And now he's wearing a cone.
He really likes to try to run out.
Yeah, he loves it out there. And he's wearing a cone. He can't go outside, and he can't lick himself or anything right now because he's got this cone on. So when I came in to record this episode, this poor guy, he's been sitting on the back of my armchair, nuzzled up in my blanket, just fucking moping. And I had to do the thing that every cat roommate or owner has to do at one point. You have to be like, "I'm sorry, buddy. I have to pick you up and take you off of this soft spot where you're dozing." And I don't know. I guess I'm just saying I'm depressed. Coming into this episode,
you had a rough time getting into this episode. Meanwhile, I just finished off a very kind of fatty bowl of tonkatsu ramen. So I'm like, I had like an experience where I'm gonna get a little sleepy halfway through this episode because of my choice of meal. So actually, I feel like we're gonna have some good energies here.
Well, let's not jump the gun here, because I'm also going to probably be pretty low energy. Beyond just being depressed, I did make chicken parmesan tonight, which is,
your favorite.
It's like a heavy. It's a favorite of mine, and I've kind of I'm learning to perfect that meal. And let's just say, you got a little side of pasta, you got this like chicken breast that's in, panko, breadcrumbs. What I'm saying is I'm low energy and I'm depressed, so I don't see how we can possibly salvage this episode. Maybe what we should do is just skip it. Maybe we'll bring up. Here's what we would have talked about.
Yeah, I'll like give the topic, and then we'll just like peace out.
Yeah, and then you guys like at home can just sort of sit and imagine what a really funny episode. Like you could be like, oh, Kyle probably like says something about diarrhea, and Nile delivers something very monotone. You can kind of fill in the blanks at this point because it's been, oh my god, it's been 8 years of this show. So like what we're gonna say.
Has been.
Yeah.
It would be fun to do an episode like that where you start off, you have like 5 minutes of banter, and then you just like put up a topic, and it's just a do your own research episode where we just like give a thing, and then everyone has to go out and research it and then tell us what it's about.
Please. We really are sick and tired of the whole shtick, so we're going to need the listener to kind of do the work this time. Speaking of listeners, Nile, we don't have a new email this week, which is okay. Hopefully I'll double check the emails. If I accidentally skipped an email, it'll be in next week. But what we hadn't done and we promised to do, we watched David's email. He emailed us a couple weeks back about a YouTube skit that was sent to us where it's a neighbor sort of reporting their Sasquatch sighting. And so we watched that. We were like, we should watch that and report back to the listeners, let David know what we thought. And I have really only one thought on that. And that is, David, is this guy like a UCB grad? Like, is that where you found him?
Oh, yeah. The person in the video, what are we talking like what kind of training?
What's the background?
Did you study like Upright Citizens Brigade? Did you go to like the fucking, what's the Second City? There's the other one.
Right.
I was trying to remember the other big one.
So I just want to know which of the two sort of schools of improv that guy was at. But no, we liked I mean, honestly though, like the images that were being painted were graphic, but very appealing, I must say. Listeners at home, I don't want to go beat by beat, but let's just say Sasquatches are in this guy's front yard, and they are. Can I say it, Nile? Is that all right?
Yeah, go ahead. As we put it out.
They're fucking.
Yeah.
Sexual style.
Yeah, I mean, and I get that there wasn't like a lot of budget for the project, but they didn't even attempt to render it at all. No details. But look, I get that it's an early project. You don't always have the budget to do these expansive ideas early on.
Here's my tip. Next time, film it on a green screen. Then you can sort of, outsource a lot of the work to, I don't know who does CG as like their main export. But outsource it to whoever's, that studio that Disney shuttered. They're probably looking for work. Maybe outsource.
I thought we weren't going to start dark.
Well, it's a dark year, Nile. It's a dark year all around. And, what else can you do with that kind of darkness? But, just laugh, that's the best medicine, I've always said. And I think that, as long as we're laughing, the darkness can't overtake us. That being said, Nile, do you have is this like a funny episode, or is it like kind of like a fucked up? Is it like,
well, that's okay. It's not incredibly fucked up, but this is like weirdly one of the closest things to a true crime episode that I'm ever going to do. Because it is technically a ghost story, but it's the story of the Greenbrier Ghost, or the ghost of Zona Heaster Shue. And the kind of claim to fame of this case is that this is supposedly the one time in American history that ghastly testimony was used to sentence a man to life in prison.
Oh, this is one of those stories where I've read these words before, but don't remember the specifics. So can you say the name of the ghost and stuff again?
Yes, I can. So it's either known as the Greenbrier Ghost, or the woman that the ghost is. Her name is Zona Heaster Shue.
Zona Heaster Shue.
Now, she has like 6 names that she gets her, like, because it's like Ezra Zona Hester something Shue, and like if you go to the full fucking legal, for some reason she has at least 5 names, and you get at least 3 of them usually used, but it's not always the same 3 when you try to look her up.
Why would you change that name though? Like, what's better than Ezra?
Fuck you. Well, this what's funny is she's not even the character in this story with like the most like name changes.
Oh,
she didn't actually physically change her name. Someone in this story did.
Okay.
And that's kind of part of the whole thing here. But this is one of those things that is kind of turned into a piece of local folklore in West Virginia, to the point where it actually even has like a roadside sign plaque thing that kind of tells a brief version of the story that you can find near one of the like highways.
What the fuck is going on in West Virginia? Do we have to move out there? Like,
I mean, I feel like I at least had to move to be closer to it, which is why I ended up going this way. Because it's kind of a hub, you know. You got to be able to. You got to have easy access to the paranormal hub.
It's like I've only ever passed through West Virginia. I think I stopped for a meal at some podunk ass like bar and grill type place, like one time. But West Virginia is like a pass through state to me. It's very pretty, I will say. Like, there's a lot of parts of it that are like very nice to look at, but like I've never been like, yeah, like I should like come here and like stay. But like the more like there's so much weird shit going on. I mean, there's the obvious Mothman stuff, but there's so many other things that have happened in West Virginia. Like maybe I got to go like actually like plan a visit, go see some Sasquatch sites, Mothman stuff. I mean, you've been to Point Pleasant, right? So
yeah, I did the Mothman Festival thing one year. Jules and I went, and it's a nice little small town. It's weird because it's such like just like a local festival in so many ways, where like it's, you know, just local artisans out there, but everything has to be related to Mothman or cryptids or whatever. Sure. So it's like this weird mix of like town fair and cryptid, and it's really entertaining. It's a really fun time to go. I'd recommend it. Plus, you get the fucking Mothman ass statue. So that's always great.
I just think sometime in my future, I feel like we've been saying for the past 8 years that like, well, when it's like financially feasible to do like a paranormal like 40-in trip, we would do it. But it's never been. Never been financially
we got locked
feasible.
Inside for like 2.5 years.
That didn't help. Like, that was a problem as well, I must admit. No, so maybe because like what I would love to do is if I could go on a trip that would be like hit a Sasquatch hotspot, hit like a general cryptid hotspot like Point Pleasant, hit a UFO hotspot, and I feel like you could do all of that in West Virginia.
Yeah, you could definitely.
Oh, and a haunting
within a couple hours, go around, and do a lot of that stuff for sure. I'm trying to think. I can't. Off the top of my head, I can't think of like.
I just know I've read it
in West Virginia, but I'm sure there are
definitely.
Yeah, on Reddit, yeah, I know it's probably there. So the marker, if you want just like the most baseline version of this story, here's just the marker that exists that kind of memorializes this event. So you can find this. It's I believe it's near a highway in a cemetery where Hester is buried, I think is where this marker is. But it says, interred in nearby cemetery is Zona Heaster Shue. Her death in 1897 was presumed natural until her spirit appeared to her mother to describe how she was killed by her husband, Edward. Autopsy on the exhumed body verified the apparition's account. Edward, found guilty of murder, was sentenced to the state prison. only known case in which testimony from a ghost helped convict a murderer.
Okay. I've definitely read about this, but I'm curious what details you've got. Because I've just heard the general idea before, but this there has to, like, what the hell is going on in this story?
I can't say that I know 100% everything that went down back then, but I do think that there is a pretty I think that there are some people, most of which being, I'll just go ahead and throw out some sources here. There's an article called the Greenbrier Ghost Reexamined by Arabeth Belasco on the greenbrierhistorical.org website that has like one of the best that I found in terms of like breaking down actual like old newspaper clippings and firsthand sources and historical sources to kind of try to corroborate a lot of things. And then there's a website called the Witchery Arts, where there's an article called The Death, Resurrection, and Retribution of Zona Heaster Shue, the Greenbrier Ghost by Todd Atterbury. And that is also one of the better breakdowns of the lore and the like context of the area that I found. So those were like the main places that you can look up if you want to read more about this stuff. It's kind of an interesting case. I do have to say that it's like there's a lot of sensationalization happened and a lot of like gossip blew things up, but it also is just like such a weird fucking, like, there's just like little weird touches throughout. So let's get into it.
All right.
We're going to start by giving kind of the story. So we'll go back and try to corroborate some of these facts afterward, but here's kind of the tale of the Greenbrier Ghost. So it started in 1897 when the actual, okay, how do I start this? So the actual event takes place on January 22nd, 1897, near Richlands, West Virginia, when basically Zona Heaster Shue has been married to this man that she met who is a blacksmith who goes by the name Trout. His real name is Edward Shue, but everyone calls him Trout. And there were a couple derivations for why they like. I think they figured out why they call him Trout, but also a lot of people just like think that he was just kind of a weird dude, like a shady weird dude. But he seems to have originally come from a place named like Trout Pass or something. Like Trout is like a moniker from the place that he's from.
See,
it seems to be where it actually came from.
Trout to me sounds like a high school skate park punk nickname, you know?
It really does. Like Scratch, Trout.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, exactly. Like, do you think this guy was, you know, fucking what's riding around with Ghost Machine or whatever that shit? I don't know shit about skating. And listening to, you know, Bad Religion and stuff. Like,
I mean, he was a bit of a bad boy.
Is Ghost Machine one of the things? Did I call that out right? I can't remember.
That sounds like a skate company, but I'm not 100% certain because I played Tony Hawk quite a bit as a child, but I never really. I always was more into the music side of that than the actual skate stuff, so I don't remember a lot of the.
I don't think
actual.
I think I maybe made up Ghost Machine, but I'm thinking of something. So listeners out there who skated, you probably. I'm picturing like whatever. It doesn't matter. I didn't skate. I'm a fucking poser. I just listened to the punk music.
Yeah. So it was January 22nd, 1897. It was very cold near Richlands, West Virginia, and Trout had been out working all day and had asked his mother-in-law to check on his wife, who was home by herself. And the mom named Martha decided to send someone who worked for her, did like chores for her, a local boy that she kind of employed to run errands and do that kind of stuff. He was tasked to go through the cold to go check on this woman. And he went around a couple times and knocked and no one was answering. And eventually he finally started to like he kind of pushed in and checked it out, and she was laying dead on the floor at the base of the stairs.
Oh fuck!
With her head like tilted.
Oh, okay. It's still on though, right?
And yes,
she didn't get beheaded. That's gotta. Can I just say? And I don't know if that's got to be one of the worst ways to go. Getting beheaded, just having that fucking thing popped off. That's so fucked up. And I imagine makes vengeful spirits.
I guess hold on to that because like
fuck.
This is This is a story that there are a lot of versions out there and a lot of kind of hyperbole versions of it. And there are literally there are versions specifically when it talks about the ghastly stuff where it's not just like broke her neck, it's twisted her head off.
Oh God. Okay.
So it's like that's not every version of the story, but it is out there and you will see it if you start looking up about it. There are versions where he fucking took her head off, but that doesn't seem to be the murderer
he took her head
seemed
off?
to have taken.
Well, listeners at home, we can deduce some things from this, namely the murderer is a man or identifies as a man. So
yeah, well,
just gonna keep that in my back pocket.
Yeah. So she was. So the reason they wanted to check in is because Zona was pickling some eggs that day, and her husband didn't want her to go through the cold to gather the eggs to pickle them. So she wanted to have someone come in, basically. And this led to this boy finding a dead woman in her house and kind of running out and getting Martha. And Martha called the physician, and Trout came home, and it turned into this whole thing. So when the scene turns into Trout and the doctor. Trout is already there, and the doctor walks in, and Trout is holding his wife's head in his hands, connected to her body, like she's like cradling her head. And the doctor wants to like check on her and everything, and he's, depending on what stories you read, he's different levels of shady about this, about letting the doctor fully check her out and everything. The most basic version is that, you know, he's just like cradling her and kind of talking and seems very trauma stricken. And the doctor kind of doesn't want to affect a grieving husband by making him like do all. And so he writes it off as death by everlasting faint was the original the original cause of death. And then later on, it got changed to death during childbirth.
Oh, what?
Despite the fact that to most people's knowledge, she was not pregnant.
Okay, weird. This is all way more insane if you picture the actual fish, the trout fish, doing all this.
Like, or the guy on the cover of Trout Mask Replica.
Sure.
If you imagine him doing all this shit, it gets
kids at home who didn't catch that reference. Go ahead and Google Trout Mask Replica, and I want you to picture that as this woman's husband for the rest of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll be really fun.
Yeah, that'll get fun.
That'll get fun.
So, yeah. So the boy that was checking in, his name's Anderson. That name will come up when you're reading stuff. He's a little African-American boy that does chores. And he becomes kind of a guy in this because he was the first person to find the body. But yeah, so Trout at the least is just kind of like unknowingly interfering with a full checkup on his dead wife. Or in some versions, he specifically like shouts to like keep the doctor away from checking the body. And though a lot of those stories come later, so like I don't think those are I don't think that actually happened. But in a lot of the more sensationalized recountings, he will straight up like yell at the doctor to kind of keep him away from checking anything too closely on her body. So Trout, to varying degrees, is suspicious from the time of death on.
Sure.
Which leads to the mother specifically, who never really liked Trout. I'll get into like how that came to be in a second. But the mother has been kind of against Trout since he blew into town because he's got kind of a past. This is not his first marriage. It's not his first child. He's also been to prison for stealing a horse. So Trout has had a bit of a history.
And I would also point out that he's a fish man, which checks one of the boxes of the sort of clue we picked up earlier. So just want to throw that out there.
Yeah. And there was this like wet, the wetness around where she was killed that seems to be that she was killed by a creature of the sea.
Yeah,
so,
and there were a bunch of trout eggs lying around.
Yeah, there was fucking roe everywhere.
Spawning season, yeah.
That's fucking great. So one funny thing is the doctor that came to check her on, so the doctor that's involved throughout the rest of this case is named Dr. George Knapp. Now, for those that don't remember, there's a George Knapp famously involved in the Bob Lazar UFO stuff.
Not the same guy, right? I'm gonna assume.
Oh, not the same guy. I couldn't easily confirm whether or not they were related.
Sure, but we don't know if
not the same man.
George Knapp is like an ageless entity or anything like that. Like that's.
I mean, look, fuck it. Maybe George Knapp's a fucking extraterrestrial, and
it's possible.
He for some reason was involved in this like weird murder in the late 1800s.
Everything's possible. It turns out. So let's put that in our pockets and come back to it someday, maybe.
Yeah. So there is one more kind of weird detail that as far as I can tell, this appears in most recountings of the story. I don't think it was around in the very first versions, but it's become canon to the text. And that is when the doctor arrives, Trout has dressed his wife in a fine dress with a stiff, tall collar and a veil, along with wearing a scarf. So this is a thing that a lot of people will point to, that he's specifically covering her neck and obscuring her neck and all these things, which will, when they later find out the possible actual cause of death in the story, that leads a lot of people to believe that this is a pretty shady action on Trout's part.
It's not. I mean, it sounds I would say it's normal, but what I would always think when I hear something like this is like, this is all we must remember that this is all happening with this woman's corpse, which has just, I'm guessing, pants full of dookie. Like
has pissed.
Evacuated bowels. At no point did they say in the story that he wiped her ass, cleaned her up so he could do this weird dress shit. So I have to assume it's like when they don't show you characters in cartoons going to the bathroom, during their episodes or whatever. Like, you never see Hey Arnold. He's like, hey, Gerald, I gotta go take a wicked crap. He never says that. Yeah. So you just have to assume they're pissing and shitting their pants in these episodes because they never show it. It's like, how can you know if they don't show it? So that's kind of the logic I'm operating on with this guy and his wife's dead body. So yeah. Anytime someone talks about this kind of thing you were just talking about, I remember reading this long post a long time ago about the show 24 and how drastically that show would have been different if they had actually committed to the bit and had fucking what's his butt have to go to the bathroom at times. Cause the whole every season of that show is 1 24-hour day. Oh, so the whole season.
All this stuff that takes place in, as far as I'm aware.
Okay.
And so it's like, in that premise, you think there would be time where he had to take care of some stuff that was not directly plot relevant.
Yeah. They dedicate 10 minutes to the burrito he ate the other night, just fully giving him a toilet emergency. It would be a different show. To your point, it would be very different.
Yeah. I think I earlier did give her wrong first name.
Oh.
So it wasn't I said it was something. It's Elva Zona Heaster Shue.
You said Ezra.
I think I said something different.
You said Ezra.
Ezra. It's Elva, not Ezra.
I did the whole better than Ezra
bit. Yeah. Well, what's better than Ezra? Elva, I guess.
Elva Presley.
There you go. Yeah. Kind of an Oswalda Cobblepot.
We're gonna have to kind of work on that one, but we can edit back in the funny version of the joke later. So.
So, upon the death of her daughter, the POV character of this story kind of shifts over to the mother, because Martha, very despondent at her daughter's
This
death.
is the dead woman's mother.
Correct.
Okay, sorry, just making sure I'm on the same
which
page.
you should know is the mother character because her name is Martha.
Her name is Martha. It's like Batman from the comics. Every mom is named Martha.
Yep.
We know
Superman,
this.
yeah.
And So
that's
right. I forgot that was like the whole thing for that movie.
That's
if
the
you
whole
haven't
thing.
seen it, is like, both our moms are named Martha. Maybe we should team up to kill
not fight
Brainiac
each
or
other,
whatever. Or whoever. I don't know who it was. I don't care. Just kidding.
Darkseid.
Okay,
it was Apocalypse in the first movie.
Okay.
I've seen that movie twice for reasons I can't really fully explain.
Okay. Yikes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
One of which was oddly a very early thing that Jules and I did together. So it was like a weirdly early bonding experience. Was Jules being like morbidly curious about this movie that I had like only watched like 2 or 3 months previous. And I was like, it's bad. It is as bad as everyone says it is. And and she wanted to watch it anyway. So we did.
Wow.
And the report was basically, yeah, it's as bad as everyone thinks. You see like the side of Ben Affleck's dong in it.
Oh, good. Well, I mean, that's worth it.
You see his butt.
Right?
You see his butt. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
You see his dong in Gone Girl. I always get the two confused.
Oh, okay. So I've seen his dong. Okay.
Yeah. You see a little side shaft.
A little side. Oh, wow. Side shaft. It casts a shadow and everything. Yeah, I can't imagine sitting through that whole movie. I would not. I don't know if I could do it. And like, you're talking right now to the guy who you somehow got me to sit and watch all of Morbius. I don't.
Yeah, but
I don't know how I did that.
That was the patrons for it.
That's true. That's true. It was technically worth $5 to me. So, but I couldn't sit.
Yeah,
through.
I think
Batman versus Superman or
Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
That's the actual title of that movie.
Anyways,
so Martha's dealing with the tragic death of her daughter, and she's very sad about it.
Sort of ironic with the Batman's parents thing, right? Like,
yeah,
probably
truly.
should be Martha
sometimes
who died.
the I wouldn't say that, but some people would.
Yeah.
So she started to pray, and supposedly she started to pray for Elva to come back and kind of tell her what happened about her death. Kind of mourning stuff. And supposedly she prayed every evening for weeks until finally one night, which turned into 4 nights in a row, Zona Heaster Shue, the ghost of Zona Heaster Shue, came to her mother and told her some stuff. So supposedly the spirit first appeared as just a bright light that slowly started to take it on a more human form. And as it kind of grew in size and shape, the room started to get cold. And once it was kind of more formed, it started to talk to Martha. And her daughter's ghost confessed that Trout Shue had cruelly abused her. And one night was in such a fit of rage because she had not made any meat for his dinner that he had broken her neck and killed her. And the ghost specifically said that he had like turned her head completely around.
Ooh, okay.
Like a full 180.
Yeah.
And then after explaining that, the ghost just like turned and walked away. While like, and then, so this happened over the course of 4 nights. It kind of, I don't know if it was like, she would just like stop mid-story. It doesn't give a full accounting of like night 1, night 2, night 3, night 4, but supposedly across those 4 nights, you got this message across.
Can you imagine being Martha in this scenario? Just like,
I mean, like, what would you do like after night 2? Like, how would you function during the day?
I mean, for me, it's like my reaction would probably be like, wow, two birds, one stone, ghosts and God are real. Like I've confirmed it by summoning the spirit of my dead daughter through prayer. So frankly, I would be like ecstatic. I think that would look like all upside to me ultimately. I mean, look, you gotta make you gotta like kind of turn a bad situation into something good, and the two G's, ghosts and God, both are real. And now, and don't you feel better having that information finally?
Oh, so much better. Well, Martha really did take a lemons lemonade type situation here, because she took this ghostly horror story that was told to her by her dead daughter and took that to the local prosecutor, John Preston, and basically just started to tell this story and impassionately try to get him to reopen the case. Now, the exact reasoning for Preston's reasoning is not entirely known. Whether it was specifically the ghost story, whether it was, some other details that he was aware of, whatever. But after enough pestering, after enough persistence from Martha, Preston started to kind of ask around town, and various other people started to bring in stories about Trout's behavior both at the funeral and just kind of around town. And also Dr. Knapp finally admitted that his examination was not really exhaustive. There was a lot left undone. And this was enough for Preston to order a complete autopsy. So a couple days later, the body was taken out of the grave. It was exhumed despite Trout's objections. And Knapp and a couple doctors took the body to a one-room schoolhouse to give it a thorough autopsy. I guess they didn't have like a full-blown morgue here, in 1897 in West Virginia. So they had to use a schoolhouse, which there is a note that I found about this later that was like, they didn't make it sound like there were school children there when they busted in during school and did it, but like there were other people present that were not doctors. So like this, my inkling of like my understanding of a lot of this stuff is that a lot of this stuff kind of happened because a lot of people got swept up in the case and got swept up in the story. And so it became kind of a local curiosity, kind of like a local cause that people would devote to. And
I would just like to add that it's a real missed opportunity for Dr. Knapp to not be like a sleep specialist doctor.
That would be great for him.
It would have been just like pure SEO, Well, actually what I was thinking is like this is what did you say, 1897?
Yes.
Spiritualism in the United States would have been pretty, I think, prevalent at this point. And like when you look at those stories, like I think the classic one is like the Fox sisters, where they're like kind of like they're basically running a grift to get people to like come visit and like witness, apparitions and ghosts and spirits, and this all eventually becomes like spirit channeling and stuff, right? So this almost reads like sort of like in the snowball that was running downhill of spiritualism. This feels like one of those moments that got picked up by that big snowball. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed. Yeah, because the thing that I read a lot while doing research on this topic was how like superstition and ghosts and stuff were just kind of like a standard part of everyday life in this area at this time. Mm-hmm. Like you had the actual like movement of spiritualism kind of growing at this time, but you also just had straight up superstition and ghost stories that people believed in because they were kind of cut off in these smaller areas. And so like those two things working together led to a guy getting sentenced to life in prison on ghost testimony, supposedly. Like it's you're right that it is the absolute just like the right place, the right time for this specific thing to have happened.
Now, maybe I'll you know what, I'll save this question for the end. I want to hear your thoughts on this case when we're done. That's so just
we
keep
will.
that in mind.
So after the autopsy, a local newspaper reported that they found on the throat were marks of fingers indicating that she had been choken, which I guess was how they wrote it. The neck was dislocated between the first and second vertebrae. The ligaments were torn and ruptured. The windpipe had been crushed at a point in front of the neck. So this led to her death being ruled not natural, and it was ruled a murder, which led to an actual case to be
choking. By the way,
judge. So this led to an actual trial.
Choking is a lot like squoze, by the way. You know, depending on who you ask, it's maybe a legitimate word, but to most of the world who frankly are sheep, it's not a real word. So
depending on who you ask, and by that you mean specifically just your parents to you.
You remember this story? I feel like I've told it on. I've told it on the show before, but I got into an argument with my 6th grade teacher because my parents would jokingly use the word squoze, like past tense squeezed, squoze instead. And I got into an argument with my teacher. I was like, nope, squoze is a real word and you can't convince me otherwise. And it was really silly. So parents had a good long laugh at that one.
Yep. So it's like it is one of those things. Like it feels like a regional thing that just got put in the paper that I don't know. That's just what it was. So, all right. Eventually, we got to an actual trial. The prosecutor looked at 2 people, basically, Trout and Martha, because Martha seemed to know how she died before anyone else.
Yeah.
And Trout had done a bunch of suspicious shit. But due to all the testimony and seemingly like the town support, because like people involved with like the jury, because you were from like a small area, there were things like, okay, I'm going a little out of order here, but you already know that he gets sentenced. Trout gets sentenced to life for this. He goes down for the murder of his wife. Before he's able to get put in jail, between the courthouse and the jail, there is an attempted lynch mob for him by townspeople who had been swept up in such a furor that they thought jail is too good for this man. He should be killed. And they literally had to hide him in the woods to be able to like get him around that to take him to actual jail, where he died 3 years later. He died in 1900. So like it's not like he had a long life in prison. But what I was getting at is some of the people that were involved in the lynch mob were also involved in like the autopsy and like the trial as like jurors. So it's the thing that I can't say with any level of certainty is that there was at all a fair trial given here.
Are you wait? Are you saying that they're biased? Because I don't know, man.
Like it seems like everybody involved had an idea of what it was before anybody stepped in a courtroom. Like I don't think what was said in the actual courtroom changed like anybody's mind. It just seems like everybody already knew what they thought about this before anyone ever got convicted.
The thing is, like, he very well could have killed his wife, and again, that's what I'm curious.
Yeah.
What you think, but like, it's like, it's just funny to think because, like, you know, we have UFO flaps and like Bigfoot flaps or whatever you want to call them, but in the modern day, like nobody gets like lynched and stuff over it. So like, I don't know. It's just funny. Like, I'm just trying to think in my, like, where's the delineating point in history where you start kind of going like, maybe we shouldn't accept the testimony of a ghost and like try to kill the guy who's being accused by a ghost. You know, I'm just, that's Look, what I'm trying to say.
All I can say is it probably happened after 1897.
Sure.
So we can kind of narrow it down from there. So now, like I said, this is all the story. So there's, you know, how much the testimony changed anything is up for debate. And I don't know if we'll ever know for sure. But that is the story, and it seems to be the thing. So just a couple other little details. When they started to dig into Trout's life, they found out that he had been divorced. Well, he had been divorced once, and he had a second wife that had died.
Ooh, and that's a bad look.
Yeah, the first ended in divorce while he was in prison for stealing that horse, and then the second one died under kind of weird circumstances, but it seemed to just be kind of like an illness. But there, so how do I get into this? All right, so let's start to peel back the curtain just a little bit.
It's not often that I see you like have to like on the fly like think like, how do I even approach this story? So lay it on me. I'm curious.
This is one of those, like, I wanted to give the story. I wanted to like say, here is the thing that you'll find, but then there are details that you can find if you dig around. Specifically, those sites that I mentioned at the top of this podcast do a great job of looking at the actual historical context. A lot of the stuff about Trout's abuse of his previous wives, abuse of Elizabeth, of Ezra, not Ezra, Jesus
Elva.
Christ, Elva. Yeah.
Sorry, my bad.
You're good. All of this stuff seems like it only really started to kick up after they had reopened the case of his, like, in the absence of information after Zona's death and before the trial. So like all of the stuff about his that kind of is anti his character, other than like the facts that we know he went to prison for stealing a horse, he had been married twice, those are facts. But the stuff about abuse, the stuff about him being kind of shady and all of these and violent and all of this stuff, all of that stuff came out only after he already was like a person of interest in the town.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so there is kind of a belief amongst a lot of people that all of that comes up to a sensational version of this story. And especially like as time has moved on, there have been various like adaptations of this story. There have been 4 different stage adaptations of this story that have been presented around different places. And most of them have some version of him being the murderer, just because that's like the story. And then one of them even, but then there's another one that straight up kind of flips it and has all of the ghost stuff and everything being Martha made it up to like punish this man. Like so basically this is one of those stories that's rich for a lot of people to read a lot of shit into it. And a lot of these details that really paint Trout as like a terrible person that is obviously at fault and shady and all this shit is mostly apocryphal. It's mostly stuff that came out after the fact and has been grafted onto the story in reverse to kind of retroactively justify his guilt. I cannot say with any level of certainty that he did not kill his wife. Let me make that very clear. He could have been guilty.
Sure. It's interesting because, like, obviously, you know, the way the story lands is like it's so clear cut. Like, this guy killed his wife, right? Yeah. Like, the heavily implied that's, but like, you know, maybe the mom just really hated this guy and used the vehicle of spiritualism to you know, help put him away. Who knows? There's no like do the like historians like land on any particular side of this? Did you find or?
Yeah, there is. I have a little bit of that here in a second.
Okay.
But just another this detail fucking killed me. Supposedly, while he was in prison for stealing that horse between his first and second wives, he supposedly, someone said he boasted in prison that he planned to marry 7 women in his lifetime. And so that like people have like retroactively made that into him being like a fucking Black Widow serial killer.
Oh, wow.
Trying to like marry and then kill 7 women across his lifetime, which is, and yet again, circumstantial, like not a proven thing that he actually said. He could have, but I don't know if he did.
It's sort of a reverse.
And those things just seem comically evil.
Yeah, it's sort of a reverse Snow White situation in a way.
Yeah.
You know, she marries 7 little men all at once. He marries.
Yeah, she marries them. Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, maybe she doesn't.
No, I think they just like live with her.
What was that relationship?
Do you think Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs is a polyamorous like piece of fiction? is an interspecies polyamorous piece of fiction.
Now that you're like saying it, I don't know what I thought that relationship was. I was mostly trying to like make the jigsaw puzzle piece fit with this guy's whole shtick, but now that you say it, I think
it's a great pull.
It is. In fact, she was probably fucking all the dwarves. That seems like a robot chicken.
Do you think she
joke.
ever stacks like?
I don't feel good about that.
Do you ever think she? See, I can't say you can't say that right when I'm about to say what I was going to say.
Sorry. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Which is, do you think she ever puts 3 of them in a trench coat and like just fucks them together?
See, I don't know if Seth Green would have come up with that one. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, there's 7 of them. So like, how would we do this? So it's like she could have 6 of them, 3 of each in a trench coat. So 2 trench coated, tall, 3 dwarf men, and then Dopey can like watch from the closet.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
Dopey likes to watch. So when the trial actually happened, the defense seemed to, or they basically wanted to kind of use the ghost thing to discredit Martha. So they really hammered on it, but she supposedly was like so calm and of conviction that she swayed like everybody, and it backfired and caused this guy to go to prison. So when the jury went to deliberate, they supposedly only took 1 hour and 10 minutes before coming back with a unanimous guilty verdict. And Shue was then sentenced to life in prison, of which he only then lived until the spring of 1900. And Martha lived until 1916 and never once recanted her story about meeting Elva's ghost. And that, whether or not you believe that encounter or not, that's the story.
Wow. I mean,
yeah,
it's kind of funny to like, I don't know. It does sound like this dude killed his wife. I got just from the way things were laid out. Although it is like very strange that this woman adamantly ran with the testimony of a ghost. That is definitely weird in its own way. Do you have like what the historians believe happened?
Yeah. So basically, they think that it was a bit of a kind of like people getting swept up in the time period, and a lot of like the stuff about Trout and all that stuff being after the fact, like all of the negative stuff about him being apocryphal, that comes from the Historical Society research stuff, because they went and looked at all of the kind of newspaper clippings and letters and everything, and all of the stuff about him being a piece of shit only came about after people were trying to blame him for the murder. So he was like a blacksmith of good standing. He was an apprentice to like basically the guy that ran the town that he lived in. Like the blacksmith that he worked for was like the biggest guy in town. And so people are like, he wouldn't have like a fucking abusive layabout piece of shit running his blacksmithery. And like they were renting that guy's house, like extra house to live in when all this stuff happened. And like, so there's all this stuff about like, he was just like a normal dude that didn't like, the marriage was fast because they met and were married 3 months later. It seemed to be like they just kind of got swept up in it and got married really quickly. And the mom just didn't like it ever. And it, so, but like I did not find a definitive answer on whether or not there was an abusive relationship here. But the thing that I did find was that like there's just a lot of sensationalism about this, and a lot of stuff that you can't like. The thing that they found out that I read about the actual cause of death. I think a lot of the ligature marks and stuff on her throat were not confirmed. I don't think that was 100% true. They think that a thing that kind of got brought up that I saw that threw some kind of wrenches into it is that the report that the reported age of Zona was like wrong by like almost 10 years. Like she was older and closer in age to Trout than people put her as. And she also had like a baby out of wedlock earlier on in her life. So like there's kind of a thing about Martha trying to kind of cover up and sanctify her daughter after the death. So she had a bit more trouble than a lot of people would really put out there right now. And they looked at the death of Trout's second wife, and it seemed like she literally just like slipped and fell on ice. It was not a thing that
tragic
had any, there wasn't like a real like, yeah, it was just a total tragic accident. It
unless he made it look like an accident to, like,
I mean, this dude could, but like all of this stuff, he had 3 wives, and they all of the places he had lived and everything were within like 7 miles of each other. Like,
so
it feels weird
if it's a killer job, it's like weird to just sort of concentrate it in that area, is what you're saying.
It's just like strange. Like, you think that there would have been more of a stink about this guy before he had his third wife, if there were like shady things about him. Because everyone knows.
Yeah, everybody's gonna. Yeah, so you'd think that this woman would have heard that he'd probably killed his previous 2 wives or whatever. Okay, I mean that makes sense.
Yeah. And so like I wish that there was a more definitive answer. But it just basically seems like the trial was kind of a bit biased, and I saw something about her possibly having a miscarriage that was being hidden upon her death. So that's the childbirth thing was true, but it wasn't technically childbirth. It was a miscarriage. I didn't find that a lot of places. So basically that is one option. It could be that they were trying to cover up for a troubled pregnancy that led to a miscarriage. And that led to her being sickly and weak and almost like falling down the stairs or something like that. Those are definite possibilities. But we don't have a full reason. I don't have a full-blown cause of death.
And I mean, I think it's impossible for a case like this to not be sensationalized in one way or another, given the ghost element. It's just like you can't escape that. It's like people are going to be in a tizzy about that idea, right? Like, I don't know. You're stuck with that. Interesting. I mean, I'd heard of this story before. Like I said, not a lot of details, so that was nice to hear. But there was one thing that I did hear, which is that they did do at the Museum of the Paranormal, there was like a wax figure of Trout. Yeah, Trout shoe replica.
Oh, fuck you.
Stupid. It's really stupid.
So how long have you been working on that one?
A couple minutes.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's bad. I'll admit it wasn't my best work.
Look, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
That's so true. The guy from The Office said that, I think.
I believe so, yeah. Jim. So there have been like 4 different stage adaptations of this play, of this story between 1998 and 2018, most of them taking place in Greenbrier. So I guess if you want to like see a stage adaptation of this, Greenbrier does it pretty regularly. But they're like all different. It's not like they're just reviving the same thing. They're all different versions. With one of them was a full-blown musical. And other ones were just plays. But then, 2 of them were plays, 2 of them were musicals, all of them different.
Wow.
So like, there's been a lot of stuff. There's also like a 1999 book that got some press and kind of revitalized it around the same time. That was where the whole idea of Martha being this kind of protector, where she made up the story of the ghost, but it was to try to get justice for her daughter. So she's like that was one of the, I think that type of accounting has kind of bled into a lot of the retellings of it since, because that is like the tone of a lot of the versions that you'll read.
And I mean, this must have been pretty sensational if it goes on to like inspire over 100 years later stage plays and musicals.
It also even appears on an episode of Drunk History, which I wanted to watch, but it wasn't.
Okay, nice.
That's no longer on Hulu at this point.
Oh.
So whenever it goes up somewhere, I'm going to watch. It's Drunk History season 6, episode 9. If anyone wants to watch it. There's also like an entirely other opera that was made about this called Everlasting Faint, which is named after her original cause of death, which I think is pretty sick.
That's good.
That came out in 2023. That I would love to hear the fucking opera book for this. Like what kind of songs do you have about this fucking story? You know?
Yeah. Well, my brother-in-law is an operatic conductor, so maybe I can see if he could pull some strings and we could get a little performance just for you and me.
Mm-hmm.
and see what it's all about. That would be kind of fun.
Yeah. There's one last, I just remembered one last little detail that I have to add to this before we wrap it up. I didn't know this was a thing. So I said earlier that she had a baby out of wedlock, right? There's no written record of that baby anywhere. There's no like ancestry data on it, anything. So
if there's one thing that we know about babies out of wedlock, it's that they don't count, right? Like that's the whole thing.
So like they think that maybe this baby had been like passed off to some cousins or something upon its birth. So there's literally a fucking bounty out about information about this child from ancestry.com. So if anyone has like info on the bastard child of Zona Heaster Shue, you can win money from ancestry.com. So putting that out there.
Wild. What if it turns out to be somebody famous?
I mean, well, at this point they would probably be dead because they were born in like 1890s, but it like maybe it was someone really fucking famous, the grandfather,
great grandfather of somebody famous, like John Krasinski.
Yeah. Fucking why, man? John Krasinski is like one of the easiest people to take shots at. And not in a way that like I think it's bad to do it, but in a way that it's always funny to do it. Do you ever just remember that he made a show that was just the concept of saying good things and then sold it for like more money than you'll ever make in a lifetime?
Yeah. I mean, I thought he sucked before that, but like, yeah, I do remember that particular moment of being shitty.
Yeah, I mean, he was doing dumb shit before that, but that one just like occasionally pops into my brain when it's like I haven't gotten paid yet and I'm like trying to figure shit out and I'm just like, fuck you, John Krasinski.
I like the moment I realized I disliked him was I had seen him in The Office and I'd watched the early seasons of the show and thought it was pretty funny. I was never a devout I was never a devout Office, like once Jim and Pam get married, the show's like done in my mind, you know?
Yeah. And when Steve Carell leaves, it tanks.
Yeah, like and he's funny in that show, although he's also like kind of mean. And then I went to see A Quiet Place with Jules. And that was when I realized he's fucking terrible. He can't do anything other than, I'm sorry, don't need to go on a John Krasinski soapbox, but like that movie, I just like, honestly, John Krasinski can be the new Adam Sandler for me. Because historically, I've been on this podcast.
It's been a while since you've had a nemesis.
Right, exactly. I used to talk shit to my nemesis, Adam Sandler. Then Uncut Gems came out and I had to forgive him and we had to move on. And I kind of had to, shake hands and make amends with the Sandman. So until John Krasinski releases his own,
you had to enter night, exit life.
Yes.
And make hands with the Sandman.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. So until John Krasinski does an Uncut Gems, he's on my top 10 celebrity shit list because everything he's done fucking, he's like Jack Reacher or whatever, right? I saw snippets of that. It fucking sucks. The Quiet Place fucking
no,
sucks.
he's not Reacher. He's the other one. He's the one that's in like The Hunt for Red October or whatever.
Whatever. He's terrible. I'm sorry, office girlies out there who love him. You got one day you'll grow up and you'll understand. John Krasinski fucking sucks. And I just wanted to kind of end this episode on a negative note.
Yeah, that's great. Because I actually have. We'll just continue down that road and go on a big question here.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, if you had to be sentenced to death in a court of law by the testimony of one creature in the world of weird,
John Krasinski.
Who do you want to sign your death warrant, and what crime did you commit?
Oh, shit. So, I've always said tax fraud is the funniest crime.
You have. That is actual canon.
Thank you for confirming that. So, I want tax fraud to be my crime. Honestly, even funnier if I accidentally did it, like egregious tax evasion or tax fraud, would be like the funniest crime I could do. And I think that I want to be, who's sentencing me to death?
That's the thing.
That's a good question. And I'm trying to think, cause like, I was like, well, what's like the funniest creature that could like wear a judge's cap, or like a wig, like a British style, judge's wig, powdered wig. And you could say the Grunch. That sounds funny. That's a funny cryptid name for sure. And it is a funny cryptid name.
But what do those things have to do with tax fraud?
Right. Exactly. So I think I really need to have stumbled into the fact that the Galactic Federation frowns on earthly tax fraud, and Valiant Thor puts me to death.
Oh,
I think that could be fun.
Pulling a bit of a deep cut.
Yeah,
going back to Valiant
Thor.
All right,
he was what? He was like the Venusian who met with Eisenhower. Am I remembering correctly? Or something,
Venusian
something like that
is correct. I forget who he met with, but it might have been Eisenhower.
I think it was Eisenhower. So,
but he was around. He just kind of like vibed. He just kind of went to conferences, I guess.
But like to them, they're like, they see all this shit go down on Earth. But as soon as I accidentally commit the most egregious tax evasion, tax fraud, I don't know which term is the correct one. Maybe they're two different things. Maybe I do both, really. It's got to be tax related.
Yeah, I mean, I think you might as well go for both.
Yeah. Well, then that's when Valiant Thor, swings the gavel. Guilty. Off with his head.
I think that's great. Yeah, so you get murdered for crimes against the galactic civilization. Valiant Thor commits testimony.
No, just to be clear, this is earthly tax fraud that they are, for whatever reason, beyond our capability to understand, deeply concerned with tax-related crimes.
So the fucking like galactic civilization, we'll call it the Orions because they're the bad ones. From the last thing I talked about, some agents from the Orions just like come in or like, hey, we've got jurisdiction here, and take you and like kind of like supersede the FBI cyber crimes division because you're doing electronic tax fraud, and take over there. Okay, so I get what you're saying now.
So now that would be me. What about you?
Here's the thing. I actually, for once, I actually had answers ahead of time, but then I thought of a better one now, so I have to go with that anyway. I'm gonna go ahead and I had this whole thing about how like Mothman's whole thing with portents could make him like a weird Columbo-esque figure, but with like death. But that's a whole other side thing. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna commit a cardinal sin here. And a cardinal sin against one of the most important creatures in all of aliendom. I am going to go into alien
Jesus
stuff
Christ,
too, because I mean, look, I didn't personally do anything against him, but maybe. No, I'm fucking stealing the griddle from the pancake bakers from Mars. Pancake baker's griddle. I'm taking that shit out and I'm stealing it.
But Nile, that's how they make the pancakes.
I know. I wanted to be able to have those crispy pancakes at home. And I didn't have a griddle of my own. So when they came down and tried to offer me just like a nice little pancake, I knocked them over the head.
Okay.
I bonked them over the head and stole their griddle. And when they woke up, they came after me in a court of law and are now going to sentence me to death for grand griddle
larceny. There you go. I have two questions for you. One, okay. You couldn't have popped over to Target, gotten yourself a fresh griddle there. It's my first question.
Look, theirs is so well fucking seasoned. They've been cooking these pancakes nonstop for years. Okay. That shit is you cannot get a griddle that well seasoned. You can't buy one. You got to steal it.
All right. I mean, I can't argue with that.
It's got great heat distribution.
Rock solid. Yeah. I really can't argue with that. Second question. Do you happen to know if you have like any Italian heritage? In your family, Italian blood in your veins?
I don't think I do.
Okay.
I mainly come, like, my dad's side's mainly British, and then my mom's side is mainly in the kind of like Poland and that kind of area.
Well, that explains your sense of humor. But
yeah, exactly.
It was so stupid. I'm just saying, like, I don't know if you could you escape that situation by being like, see, I bleed like all. I don't know where I was going with that. I'm an Italian like you, you know?
Yeah, well, this is the thing. I feel like this is a thing that I have to clarify. The aliens were not Italian. He said they looked Italian.
Right, I get that. And I'm saying they were Italian.
Oh, you think I could like... Okay, so you're making it out that they're... Okay, so I guess I could have tried to make like a nice caprese pancake or something for him and kind of made it work together.
But it sounds like you're shit out of luck.
Maybe I could have just like contracted them out. Maybe I should have just tried to like create a partnership and do kind of a brand deal with these pancake bakers. But hey, I'm going to die, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, unfortunately, you are going down via lethal injection for this one. I will say, I have always, in my head canon with those guys, which, for those who don't know, the Italian-looking pancake bakers from Mars, those guys didn't just look Italian, they were Italian. They are when you ever heard an Italian talk about the old country?
Yeah.
Yeah. Think about that. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about ancient alien stuff.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're talking about that Anunnaki.
Yeah. Cool. Well, it's a shame we both had to die, but we did commit our crimes, and so
I swear I will have a big question soon that doesn't murder at least one of us. I don't
know
why that's been my thing lately. I don't know why that's my bit lately.
It's 2024. It's the year of darkness. We've established this is the year we go fucking dark and gritty. This is the gritty reboot of It Gets Weird. Snyders
years,
directing.
That sounds about right. Yeah, but it's Snyders of Hanover, so we're okay.
Exactly. Perfect. That's it all just comes back around.
We should have just killed it at that point. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well.
You want to move on to some business?
Yeah, let's take care of some business. So if you want to follow us on social media, you can follow us on Twitter at IGW Podcast.
You can follow us on Facebook.com/ItGetsWeirdPodcast.
And we're on all your favorite podcatchers, whether you're on Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you look up It Gets Weird, we're probably there.
Twitch.tv/ItGetsWeird. Come join us. I'm slowly making my way through the Elden Ring DLC. Hopefully I'll be playing. I guess that's only for. Look, just come follow us on Twitch. Can't play when I'm out of town on weekends, but I've been playing every other weekend, basically. It Gets Weird podcast at gmail.com. If you want to send us emails that we might read out on the show if it's a good one, please hit us up at itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. If it's a good email, that we're going to read that shit aloud. We're going to give you credit. Just, tell us how we should refer to you. And people are generally pretty good about that, but just let us know so we don't make a blunder.
Yeah.
Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We have a $2 tier and a $5 tier. At the $2 tier, you get It Gets Weird TV, where we talk about a weird show. Right now, we're in the back half of the season 2 of The X-Files. So at the $2 tier, you can hear us discuss The X-Files and many other, I don't know, weird TV shows, I guess. We also have a $5 tier where you get a bunch of more bonus content that comes out in the off weeks of It Gets Weird TV. And whether you donate to the $2 tier or the $5 tier, you get a huge back catalog of I don't know how many episodes at this. At some point, I'm going to have to go and look and give you a general number, an idea of how many, but it's a lot.
250 at this point.
Okay, so it's like multiple hundreds of episodes. So if you thought 400 some episodes of It Gets Weird was wild, it's hitting me now that we have like almost 700 episodes worth of content in existence, and that's freaking me out a little bit. So please check out patreon.com/itgetsweird. Whether you donate to the $2 tier or the $5 tier, you get access to the main show 2 days early on Friday instead of Sunday. And you get access to the Discord where we're hanging out, chatting with listeners of the show. A lot of people talk to us there directly. And it's a fun time. We got a lot of cool people in our community. We also have $1 tier. You can kind of think of it like a tip. You're giving us $1. You don't get any, new content or anything out of it. Just saying, hey, thanks for doing what you do. I don't need to listen to all that bonus schmonus bullshit. Here's $1. Thank you for being my favorite weirdo podcast. If you can't donate, though, please tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your congressman all about It Gets Weird podcast.
All right. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for continuing to support the show. This has been It Gets Weird, and I've been Nile.
And I'm Kyle, signing out.